In the next part of the lesson, we're going to talk about simplifying complex numbers. So when we are adding and subtracting a complex number, we just combine like terms. When we are multiplying complex numbers, we are distributing, then we combine like terms, and again, we have to remember that I squared is the same thing as -1. So we would substitute that in if we need to, if we end up with an I squared term. Okay. So the most important thing is that we are paying attention to the notation and to the operation that we are doing between our complex numbers. So they always put parentheses around a complex number to identify that those two things go together. So that's really one number. So if there is a number in front of our complex number, we would need to distribute it. But if there's not, we can just ignore the parentheses and either add or subtract. Okay? Now, if there's not an add or subtraction sign in the middle, that means that we're multiplying. So we do have to do the FOIL method. So again, for these, it's very important that you're paying attention to the operation in between the set of parentheses. So here we have a plus. So if we're adding, we want to get rid of the parentheses to start with. So since there's these invisible ones in front, we can really just think of this as 3 plus 4i plus 2 minus I. And then we would combine like terms. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and then 4i minus I is a positive 3i. And then there's nothing else that we can do to combine, so that would be our final simplified answer. So I is still acting like a variable. Okay, so the next one we are subtracting. So here again we have a 1 in front and then a -1 this time. So this first term, when we distribute 1 in, is still just going to be -2 plus I. And then for the second one, we're distributing in a negative. So this will become a positive 3 and then a positive I. So we're taking negative times a negative. And now we're just combining like terms. So -2 plus 3 is 1. And then I plus I is a positive 2i. So this would be our final simplified answer. And remember, when we are writing a complex number, it's the real number first and then the imaginary number. All right, our next one. So we don't have an operation in between, so that tells us that we are multiplying. So we have to use the FOIL method to simplify. So I'm going to take 2 times -3, so -6. 2 times 6i, so that is 12i. -I times -3 is a positive 3i. And -I times 6i is -18i squared. So we're going to combine like terms, and since we have that I squared, we need to substitute in a -1 for the I squared for it to be considered simplified. So we would have -6 plus 15i, and then we have -18 times -1, so that's really just going to be a positive 18, which means that I can now combine that with 6. So -6 plus 18 is a positive 12. So I'm going to have 12 plus 15i as my final answer for this problem. All right, so the last simplifying problem. So we have a couple things going on. So we need to multiply 4i into everything in the first set of parentheses. The second set we are FOILing, and then we're adding in between, so we're going to be combining like terms. So let's start with distributing. So 4i times -2 is -8i. 4i times 3i is positive 12i squared. And then here we are FOILing. So I'm going to put a plus here for that plus. And then I'm going to put a bracket just in case we need it, since we're multiplying. So 2i times I is 2i squared. 2i times 1 is positive 2i. -4 times I is -4i. And -4 times 1 is -4. So now if this would have been a minus sign, we would have had to go through and flip all these signs. So it's important that we do put brackets here just in case we need them. So now we're going to work on combining like terms, and we have to replace all of the I squareds with -1. So I'm going to start with the I squareds. So if I'm putting in a -1 here, this term is really going to change to be a -12. And then here this will change to be a -2. So now I'm just going to start combining. So I have -8i minus 12 plus, and then I can combine -2 with -4, so that's going to be a -6. So I'm going to write that second, or -6. So we have plus a negative. And then 2i minus 4i is -2i. And then we still can combine. So -8i and -2i will combine to be -10i. And then -12 plus -6 is -18. And then again, I'm just going to rearrange because my real number has to be first. So our final answer will be -18 minus 10i. So this would be our final answer.